Winter doesn't arrive and catch Nordic homes off guard. It arrives to a home that's already been quietly preparing for weeks, while most American homes simply wait for the cold to show up before reacting to it. Today, I'll walk you through 9 things Nordic households do before winter fully sets in. Things most homes elsewhere only think about once the discomfort has already started. Stay until number 5 because it's a solution already sitting in many American homes, just never used the way it's actually meant to be. Let's begin. Nordic winter preparation isn't really about bracing for hardship. It's about arranging a home so thoroughly in advance that the darkest, coldest months become simply another season to live inside of, rather than something to survive. This distinction carries real weight once you sit with it. A home that reacts to winter, addressing cold drafts once a room already feels uncomfortable, buying warm gear once the first cold snap arrives, is living the entire season several steps behind its own needs, perpetually catching up. A home prepared in advance experiences the same winter, the same darkness, the same cold, but meets each part of it already equipped, which changes the felt experience of the season considerably, even though the external conditions are identical either way. Let's look at what that preparation actually involves. Number 1. Sealing windows and checking insulation before the first real cold arrives. Nordic homes tend to treat this as an annual, non-negotiable task. Checking window seals, adding weather stripping, addressing drafts, weeks before temperatures actually demand it. Waiting until a room already feels cold means living with the discomfort while fixing it, rather than never experiencing the discomfort at all. Number 2. Switching bedding to heavier, natural fiber materials for the season. Wool blankets and flannel sheets replacing lighter summer bedding well before the first genuinely cold night arrives. This isn't reactive layering added once someone's already cold in bed. It's a seasonal changeover completed in advance, so the bedroom is already prepared the moment it's actually needed. Number 3. Staging outdoor winter gear somewhere immediately accessible near the door, rather than buried in a closet requiring a search each time weather turns. Boots, warm layers, and outerwear organized and ready means the daily decision to go outside despite cold weather never gets quietly discouraged by the added friction of digging through storage first. Number 4. Preserving and fermenting the last of the season's harvest before the growing season fully ends. Pickled vegetables, preserves, and stored root vegetables, prepared specifically to carry a household through months when fresh produce becomes scarcer and more expensive. This isn't nostalgic tradition for its own sake. It's practical preparation that happens to align with what we know about fermented food and gut health, solving 2 problems with one seasonal task. Now here's number 5, the one I promised. A solution already sitting in many American homes, just never used the way it's actually meant to be. Number 5. Setting up light therapy lamps before the darkness fully arrives, not after seasonal low mood has already taken hold. Many American households already own one of these lamps, often purchased during a difficult winter the year before, used briefly, then abandoned once the acute discomfort passed, only to sit unused until the next difficult winter prompts the same short-lived response. Nordic households, particularly in the far north where winter darkness is extreme, treat these lamps as preventive equipment, used consistently from the earliest weeks of shortening daylight, not as emergency treatment reached for only once low mood has already set in. Here's what's worth sitting with. Light therapy works considerably better as prevention than as treatment, used before the body's rhythm has already drifted rather than after, which means the lamp sitting unused in your closet right now may be solving the wrong part of the timeline entirely. Waiting for a crisis it was actually designed to help you avoid in the first place. There's a specific reason timing matters this much here. Circadian rhythm adjusts gradually, And a rhythm that's already drifted significantly out of sync with shortening daylight takes considerably longer to correct than one that's simply being maintained consistently as daylight changes happen. Starting early isn't just more effective. It's addressing an entirely different physiological situation than starting late. Number 6. Weatherproofing the entryway specifically for wet boots, snow, and dripping outerwear. A designated mat, boot tray, or small bench that keeps winter mess contained to one clearly defined zone rather than trailing through the rest of the home. This is a small structural decision made once, before the season, that prevents a recurring daily frustration for the following several months. The kind of minor irritation that never feels significant in any single instance, but accumulates real weight repeated dozens of times across an entire winter. Number 7. Scheduling regular sauna or fireplace use as a fixed part of the coming season's rhythm, rather than an occasional treat reached for sporadically. Nordic households tend to build this into the week deliberately once winter arrives. The same unremarkable regularity we've explored elsewhere in this series, rather than waiting for motivation that tends to be scarcest exactly when the practice would help most. Precisely the darkest, coldest weeks, when enthusiasm for anything requiring effort tends to be at its lowest point of the year. Number 8. Deliberately lowering productivity expectations for the darkest months, rather than pushing through them at the same pace as brighter seasons. This is less a physical preparation and more a mental one, an acknowledgement made in advance that less daylight genuinely means less available energy, and planning accordingly rather than treating winter fatigue as a personal failing to push past. Deciding this in advance matters specifically because the decision is far easier to make calmly in autumn than to make honestly once already deep in a difficult, low-energy stretch of the season, when the temptation is simply to blame oneself for the very fatigue that darkness itself is largely responsible for. Number 9. And this is the one that tends to land differently than the rest. Stocking candles and warm lighting supplies specifically before the darkest weeks arrive, ensuring the home's evening atmosphere is ready in advance, rather than assembled reactively each time darkness falls earlier than expected. A small supply, gathered ahead of time, means the transition into darker evenings is met with something already prepared, rather than something scrambled together in the moment. The difference between an evening that already feels intentionally cozy and one that simply feels dark until someone remembers to do something about it. That's all 9. None of these require dramatic effort individually. Together, they describe a household that decided, in advance, what winter would actually feel like to live inside of, rather than discovering the answer reactively once the season had already arrived. It's worth naming the deeper pattern connecting all 9 of these, one that extends well beyond winter itself. Every difficulty on this list, cold drafts, unused light lamps, scrambled evening lighting, low motivation for self-care practices, becomes measurably harder to address once already fully underway than it would have been to prevent in advance. This isn't really a video about winter specifically. It's about the broader principle that preparation, however unglamorous compared to reactive problem-solving in the moment, tends to be the quieter, more effective version of the same effort, arriving earlier and costing considerably less than the alternative. A gentler winter was never built by simply enduring it once it showed up. It was built the way Nordic households tend to build it, several weeks of quiet preparation ahead of time, so the season itself becomes something lived inside of comfortably, rather than something to brace against. Tell me in the comments which of these 9 you're going to actually do this year, and let's hold each other accountable before the darkness arrives rather than after. Which number are you starting with this week? Meet us in the comments and tell us. I'll see you in the next one.